After 5 years, we finally made it to Loja, Ecuador.
We were considering moving to Loja originally when we were researching Ecuador, but we chose Cuenca instead.
After spending a week in Loja, we still think we made the right decision to go to Cuenca first, but it did surprise us.
In this video, we are going to share the pros and cons of Loja.
There are several things that we think you're going to love about Loja, but there are a few that you probably aren't going to like too much.
Starting with the pros, Loja is very affordable.
Yeah, we found that it was pretty similar in cost to Cuenca for things like the taxi drivers. The mercado was very similar, and the food that we bought at Supermaxi was pretty much the same price that we've paid at all the Supermaxis.
Same with the TIA, the food prices were the same. Our Airbnb, however, was half of the price of an equivalent place in Cuenca. And in general, the rents are cheaper than they are in Cuenca for unfurnished rentals.
Loja is much bigger and more urban than we realized it would be, which I guess depending on what you like could be a pro or a con.
I was very surprised. I had it in my head that Loja was going to be similar to Vilcabamba or Cotacachi, and that was not the case. It was interesting because parts of town felt more suburban, it was very quiet, but then we would walk across over to Parque Simon Boulevard, for example, and it felt very urban to me. It reminded me more of some neighborhoods we visited in Guayaquil, specifically Ordesa.
As many of you know, I prefer a bigger city to a small town. And I was really pleasantly surprised by how urban and modern Loja felt. It reminded me a lot of a smaller version of Cuenca, maybe what Cuenca was like 10 or 15 years ago.
Loja is a beautiful city.
It really is. It has a lot of different styles of architecture, colonial, Art Deco, which is very popular in Ecuador. It also has what I call the 60s utilitarian. I wouldn't call that interesting. It's very boxy and Eastern Bloc looking, but there's so many old buildings that look like they were straight out of Shakespeare, like from old Europe hundreds of years ago, and a lot of the city had been revitalized, painted, cleaned up. It just looked really beautiful.
There's a lot of tree-lined streets. Our favorite was 24 de Mayo. We loved walking in that area. That area actually reminded me of Fort Collins for all you Coloradans out there, to give you a frame of reference.
Yeah, the parks in the town too, there's a bunch of them, and they are so beautiful and well kept. So you can just walk a few blocks and be in a different park with benches to sit on and birds to watch. We just really enjoyed walking around the town.
Along those same lines, Loja is extremely clean.
They have a green team, which is what I call them now. They used to wear blue uniforms in Cuenca when I called them the Blue Crew. But the green team is out there. They push their trash cans with their brooms around town, and they pick up all the trash, and they just keep the city spotless.
Plus there's recycling bins all over the city. There's trash cans all over the city. We just really didn't see a lot of trash at all. However, we did see some dog poop on the sidewalk. So people pick up after your dogs.
Yeah, it's hard to do when you just let your dog out to walk itself. But that is very common throughout Ecuador, and actually I guess most of the world. Unfortunately, the green team cannot follow the dogs around, and the dogs replenish the supply daily, so it takes them a while to get back around and pick all that up, but they do keep that picked up as well.
In our opinion, Loja is much quieter than Cuenca.
Yeah, that's for several reasons, I think. One of the main ones is they don't allow the big buses, the big diesel buses in the El Centro part of town. So it was extremely quiet there. You didn't have those big diesel engines roaring down the streets, which also meant a lot more people were out walking around.
Our Airbnb was on a busy road, so we heard just road traffic during the day, but the bedrooms were in the back and it was super quiet. And at nighttime, everybody goes to bed early apparently, because we didn't hear anybody out and about late at night. And I didn't really hear any dogs barking or roosters.
We did, however, hear the gas trucks, the propane delivery trucks. They spin by every hour or so, and they play their music really loud so people know to go grab their gas tanks. That gets old, and man, that song stuck in my head days after we left Loja.
But we didn't hear a lot of other music, which is unusual for Ecuador.
Loja is also very family friendly.
We saw children everywhere. They were walking themselves to school. There's a lot of schools, playing in the parks. There are a lot of parks, unique parks, and family-friendly parks throughout Loja, and people were taking full advantage.
There's a lot of parks, green space parks too, where you can go hiking or walking along the rivers. Just south of town, you have Podocarpus National Park. There's an entrance just outside the city. There's also a botanical garden in that same area. So there is a lot of nature that is easily available. Oh, and I almost forgot about Pucará, which is a beautiful park. It's like a recreational park, but in the back there is a, what do they call that? A hike?
A sendero?
A sendero, but it was an ecological sendero. So it was like an eco park. It was a really cool hike, and we have a video from that coming soon.
Loja is extremely walkable.
Yeah, they do have the buses around El Centro, so you can take those for public transportation. You can grab cabs inside El Centro if you need to, but you don't have to. You could easily walk almost all over the entire town. In fact, we did when we were there. If you saw our last video, I think we logged 7 miles on that day when we walked all over Loja. You can walk to the Tia and the Super Maxi, which is on the south side of town. That's a bit further out, but it's still extremely walkable.
Well, and what's nice is that they have those linear parks that run all the way through town. So you have lots of different walking options. And that's why we think everybody seems so fit. We saw a lot of fit people. We're thinking it's because they walk a lot. But also we saw a bunch of gyms and dance classes. And of course they have those free exercise areas in the park.
And martial arts studios.
Oh,
we
yeah.
saw several different kinds of that too.
We even saw one of those survival training things.
Yeah, that was cool.
Loja is lower in elevation than Cuenca.
I appreciated the extra oxygen. Loja is about 6,700 feet above sea level, while Cuenca is about 8,400, so it's quite a bit different, which also means Loja is warmer than Cuenca. We definitely did not need to bundle up as much. We didn't need heaters in our Airbnb like we normally do in Cuenca. And when we went to Cuenca, we froze our butts off in our Airbnb in which we had a heater.
Except for the day when the sun came out and practically scorched us. But then, in a few hours, the temperature completely dropped and we were cold again. We did not experience that kind of extreme in Loja.
And now Amelia's favorite subject, it had a lot of options for shopping.
Yeah, and I actually did not go into any of those clothing or shoe stores, JP. Darn it. However, we did go into the Tia and the Super Maxi, which were both very nice. There's a lot of mercados. There's just a lot of mom and pop shops and a couple small shopping malls, so you could find pretty much everything you need.
There is a Kiwi down by the Super Maxi, as well as a Total Hogar and a T-Ventas, which is like an electronics mix and match store. I mean, it's a variety of different things in there, but I was really shocked at the high quality of clothing and shoe stores that we saw all over. They even had a really cool vintage store. Unfortunately, there was no name on it, so we can't tell you what it's called.
Yeah, we didn't go in there to check it out. There's also a lot of small electronics stores. Furniture stores, there's a very nice variety.
Loja also has a variety of hospitals around El Centro and around town that we saw.
There's the Public Community Hospital, the IESS Hospital, and several private hospitals, including Solca. Those are cancer centers that focus on prevention and treatment, and they are located all throughout Ecuador.
Several of the hospitals that we saw had either been recently built or renovated. They looked really up to date and modern.
And our final pro is that Loja has great people.
Everybody was so friendly to us. It's a university town, so there's a lot of younger people there. We saw a lot of professionals. People talked to us on the streets, said buenos dias, buenas tardes. All of the servers in the restaurants were super nice and friendly.
We stayed right next to a little mercadito that was owned by an older gentleman, or at least he worked there. And we had so much fun going in there and shopping with him and interacting in Spanish while listening and dancing together to our 80s music.
I think that was actually a father who's very old and his son who's also old. And they worked together in that shop, and they were always listening to 80s music, and they loved it when we came in because everybody would just start dancing. They thought that was really cool that the Americanos were in there listening to 80s music with them.
It was really fun.
And it's 80s music like what you're used to from the United States. It's not Ecuadorian 80s music. It's like Cyndi Lauper and Van Halen. It's so funny.
Before we dive into the things you might not like so much, we want to remind you that we send out a free newsletter every Friday with expat relevant news in English.
Amelia does the research for it, and I write the story so that we can keep you all informed about what's going on in the expat world. So check below for a link. I'll put that down there so you can opt in. You can, of course, opt out at any time, and you'll get to download our free cost of living calculator.
And now for the cons. Loja is a bit isolated.
The airport for Loja is actually located in Catamayo, which is about 45 minutes west of the city. And there's only one road, and it's a mountain road with landslides that happen and blocks the road. Also, when we had the Paro, they blocked that road, so you can't get to and from the airport from Loja.
There are no direct flights from Loja to Cuenca, so you would need to fly back to Quito and then fly to Cuenca, making it faster to drive there, and the drive takes about 4 hours.
And also, landslides are common. We saw a whole bunch of them on our drive from Loja to Cuenca, and it's a totally beautiful drive. Highly recommend doing it, but if you need to get somewhere fast and there's a landslide, it's difficult.
Loja does not have a lot of alternative diet options in the restaurants.
It's mostly kind of a surf and turf cuisine town. There were a few options. They weren't always open when they were supposed to be, which is common in Ecuador, but we did have a hard time eating out being plant-based eaters.
We did see a lot of pizza and Italian places, but it may be hard to eat gluten-free.
Another downside, especially compared to Cuenca, is that you cannot drink the tap water.
We did use it for cooking, for making our coffee, and for brushing our teeth.
We are going to invest in one of those mobile travel filtration systems so that we can filter the water out of the tap when we travel like that, because we just hate using all of the plastic bottles. We did take them to the recycle bins, but it still makes me feel horrible to have to use that stupid plastic.
There's not as much to do compared to Cuenca, especially on Sunday.
We just couldn't believe it. Everything was closed in town on Sunday. All the shops were closed. The flower market was still open, but man, even a lot of the restaurants were closed. We couldn't believe it.
Yeah, we wanted to go see our friendly neighborhood father and son Mercadito duo, and they closed up at 3 o'clock, so we didn't get there in time.
They do have a lot of live performances and a cultural center, and there's, as we mentioned, a lot of outdoor activities to do. But in terms of things that are expat friendly, like what you find in Cuenca, expat oriented events and gatherings, we didn't see much of that in Loja.
It actually rained quite a bit while we were there. We were lucky because we had 2 really good days for filming, but we saw a lot of rain.
Yeah, those 2 filming days were bright blue skies with those white puffy clouds. I love that for our videos and for the photographs I took, but it rained a lot, which is really common in the mountain towns. It typically rains in the afternoons. Unfortunately, we had several days in a row where it rained most of the day, most of the time, even at night.
We also were told that it had not been raining in Vilcabamba either, so we're assuming that this is part of the weather pattern in Loja.
Mm-hmm. And it could also be related to La Nina,
yes,
which has been dumping a lot of extra rain on Ecuador for the past couple of years.
Loja has very few expats.
Yeah, we were surprised that we didn't see more. We really only saw a handful the entire week that we were there. In Cuenca, when you walk around, there's a lot. You see a lot of expats, a lot of gringos walking around, but not in Loja.
Well, on the ones we did meet, I think we met 2 people that lived in Loja, and the rest of them had come up from Vilcabamba.
Or at some of the other neighboring towns. They were just in town, for the day doing some shopping. Also, what that means is that there are not a lot of expat-oriented services like you'll find in Cuenca.
And there are very few English speakers. We spoke exclusively Spanish. I think we had 2 servers attempt to speak to us in English, and the English they had was very limited.
Yeah, it's not like Cuenca where almost everybody speaks English. Even a lot of the cab drivers and the people in the mercados will speak some English, but yeah, in Loja, it was almost exclusively Spanish. What's funny too is that we were ordering dinner one night and the server was talking to us in English. I didn't even recognize it. I was just responding in Spanish, and he walked away and Amelia said, he was speaking to you in English, right? And I said, really? I just thought my Spanish had gotten really good since we were here, because I didn't even notice that he was speaking English.
And what he said was pretty limited.
But that was a funny experience. Overall, we really enjoyed our time in Loja. I think we still made the right decision to move to Cuenca first because it was a much easier landing. It's definitely decked out for expats. There's a lot of English speakers, so if you've never lived abroad before, I think Cuenca is still the better choice. However, Loja is a really good option, especially if you want to live in a smaller city with, more of a local feel and fewer expats.
Well, and it would be a great way to fully immerse yourself in the culture and learn the language.
Yes. If you guys enjoyed this video, we think you're going to love this one. And remember to check below for a link to sign up for that newsletter.
And don't forget to leave us a like, please. We would really appreciate that. And we will see you all in our next video.
Ciao.
Ciao.